people say that running away from your fears or never experiencing your fears is a fulfilling way of living your life. But the story I'm going to share today is attesting that actually never experiencing your fears is going to make you feel living empty inside. And this is my perspective, right? And I just hope the story I share today encourages you all to face your fears. Because on the other side of fear is a rainbow that awaits everyone. So my story starts with, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. Most of us have, right? And it doesn't mean I'm upset with my family. I take pride in it. I wouldn't change anything. But it's my story, so I'm going to share it. And so I grew up in a dysfunctional family where we prided on perfectionism, people-pleasing, and it just kind of embedded this idea in myself as a very young child that I had to avoid conflict at all costs. And it made me just understand that I was here to perform for others. And it was exhausting. But there was times as a very young child when we are young and we are a child, that's when our joy and our authentic self comes out. And I would always exude boldness and bravery, and it was just too much for my parents because it triggered their trauma. And I don't blame them, right? That's okay. But what that did to that little girl at a young age made me believe that I can't be valued. And if my family doesn't accept me for who I am and all of who I am, then why would God? And so what happened is I just continued to live in a life of just people-pleasing, a performance. And about when I was a teenager, fast forward 17 years or so, I basically got to this point where I just knew I had this fear deep down inside me that if I was going to face my family fears and address everything, it would be me, first and foremost. And second of all, that once I faced those fears, that I wouldn't be seeing them for quite a while. And with a family of codependency, that's like cutting off my air. I didn't want to do that. Nobody wants to not see their family. So what did I do? Like most people do, I ran away from my fears. Fast forward 10 years of my life, people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a life of performance, I was beyond unfulfilled in my life and exhausted and just full of anxiety and depression. Because when we're not living in our authentic self, we're not fulfilled. And I fast forward to an experience in my life that I don't have time to walk through. It was a very toxic encounter within my family, and what it helped me realize is that this was my wake-up call. And I realized in hindsight and looking back, life will continue to throw opportunities or hardships, however you want to look at it. One option is you continue the same cycle and keep repeating your mistakes and not learn from it. Or the other is you lean in and you grow and you feel that pain, but you let that pain make you, then break you. And so this time I decided that I was going to feel fear and I was going to face that fear. And what did that look like? I went to therapy. Woo, therapy, just going to be real. Yeah. And I talked to my family, and I made some really hard decisions and discussions that I had been waiting to talk about forever. And I took time away from my family for the very first time in my life because I was choosing my mental health for the very first time. And it was excruciating, right? If you have a family of codependency, you don't want to cut that cord. But it was a blessing because the further I got away from the toxic behaviors, the more clarity I got. The more clarity that I could see just right through it, that my family was not ready to face their fears. And that's okay, but I am. So it ended up being a blessing because working through all these limiting beliefs that I had about myself or that I couldn't be valued, I started to see that, one, I am valued, I am worthy, and I can be loved by God. And it was the biggest blessing because through it all, I realized in who I am. And I've been created to be bold and brave. And I also realized my biggest passion, which is encouraging souls to discover who God or a higher power created them to believe they are. And the reason I bring this all up today is because I want to just ask you guys all a question. What if? Just what if everything you ever wanted was on the other side of fear, a rainbow awaiting you. And I believe full-heartedly, every single soul in this room, I believe it, that your rainbow awaits you too. The question is, when life throws adversity to you, what will you choose? Thank you.